We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost for college football sickos like you with a donation. Hit the dollar sign where you make a comment and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody, and I mean everybody, into the chat room. Even Skaven, yes, Mr. Cornhusker. Even Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane. Holy smokes, even Go Black 45, even Stephen McNeely, even Bo Weevil, Mr. Clemson Tiger. You are all welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. With your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Today is the day. Today is the day. Obi, I'm so tired of losing. I am down. I am sick and tired of losing. I'm so sick of being the butt of everybody's jokes. my winning percentage is in the toilet. This is it. Week 9. This is where I turn it all around. Week 9 is made for a miracle. Let's go. Greg the Gold. So we're going to make our selections today. Usually we do it on a Wednesday. We moved it up. We're going to do it on a Tuesday. I've got a feeling that we're going to have a busy week talking about some other subjects. I have made an executive decision here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be making our picks today, Tuesday. Not tomorrow on Wednesday. I can't promise anybody a rose garden, but we might be having a very surprising, busy week here in the next couple days. Today we're going to be making our picks. I also want to clean up something. I might have given the wrong exact numbers on our wins and losses against the spread. My record is 34 wins, 49 losses. The PATC Community's record is 35 wins, 48 losses. Now, you are a game ahead of me. And the last numbers I put out, you were a game ahead of me. But I might have put out different numbers. These are the correct numbers. I don't want any of you accusing PATC of doctoring the numbers, of stuffing the ballots, of corruption. 34 and 49 against the spread is not the number I would choose if I was doctoring the numbers. Okay? 34 and 49. That is the accurate number. 35 and 48. The PATC Community is your accurate number. Before we get to the selections, the picks against the spread, I want to go through an article here. Again. Part of the fun of the expanded playoffs is talking about the expanded playoffs. You know, it ain't just the difference between 4 teams getting into the playoffs and 12 teams getting in the playoffs. That's not even the big difference. The big difference is in week 9, how many teams, how many fan bases are sitting there going, if everything goes right, if we run the table, if that team up ahead of us can lose 1 game or maybe 2 games, if everything breaks correctly, we can sneak in the playoffs. How many fans are having that discussion right now versus over the last 10 years from 2014 to 2023 with a 4-team playoff? It is a massive difference. And it is the beauty of the expanded playoffs. So, of course, we're going to be talking about teams. We're going to continue to talk about it. Teams that still have an outside chance to get into the expanded playoffs. That's the beauty of it, to dream about it. Now, on the other side of the fence is there's going to be more heartbreak. More heartbreak than ever before. And this is going to sound cruel. This is going to sound bad. You might unsubscribe when I say this. You're probably going to turn off this live show when I say this. But I got to be authentic. Because that's what Northsiders, North Minneapolis, that's what we are. We're stupid. We're not that intelligent. We don't know how to dress. Blah, 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 blah. But we are authentic. North Minneapolis. I'm here for it. I'm here for the heartbreak. I'm sorry. I am here to watch the fans in the chat room celebrate because they're going to the playoffs. Celebrate because they have a chance to go to the playoffs and they actually are listed in the playoff when it all comes out, when all those 12 teams, the official announcement. I'm going to be happy and elated to see that, and I'm here for the cruel part of it, the heartbreak, the drama. I'm sorry, but I'm here for it all. Maybe because I'm bitter of being a 56-year-old Golden Gopher fan, that's probably a lot of it. Or maybe I'm a jerk. Maybe that's some of it. But it's going to have everything. We've already had heartbreak. We've already had heartbreak. Ole Miss Rebels, right? Because of the expanded 12-team playoffs, the fan base rightfully believed, had the expectations that the Ole Miss Rebels would make the playoffs in 2024. I don't blame them. I predicted Ole Miss to go to the playoffs. They still might get there. I think they're ranked about 18, but they're on the outside looking in. Things are going to have to bounce. They can still get there. Don't get it wrong. They can still get there. But right now, it's heartbreak because Ole Miss expectations, they were going to go to the playoffs. Utah. When you go from a 4-team playoff to a 12-team playoff, the great fans of the Utah Utes expected to get to the playoffs. They don't really expect it to get to a 14 playoffs. Not a whole lot of fan bases had those expectations. Truthfully, honestly. But now with a 12-team playoff, everybody is dreaming. And Utah is going through heartbreak because they're not going to get there. There's a whole bunch of teams out there that have already been crushed. And there's a whole bunch of them out there being set up to be crushed. But there is a handful of them that is ready to make all their dreams come true. So when you think about your team, and if you're still in the race over in the last couple of weeks, is your college football playoff stock up or has it gone down? SMU, their stock is up. Clemson's stock is up. Miami's stock is way up. Michigan's stock is down. USC is destroyed. It's a penny stock. Right? Penn State is up. Oregon is up. The Buckeyes flatlined a little bit, but they're still up overall. UNLV has dipped a little bit. Boise State has gone up. Navy has gone up. Army has gone up. Liberty has drifted a little bit because there's too many other G5 programs that stock has gone up. It is somewhat of a zero-sum game. Anyways, I want you all to talk about that in the chat room. Give me a phone call. We're going to be going through an article here from The Athletic, a short little article, not going to take us much time, talking about Indiana's stock, talking about Alabama's stock. Interesting article, and we're going to be getting more of these articles as the days and week 9, week 10, week 11 delivers the results. Ryan Thomas, breaking, Navigate was using genetics models while working with Endeavor. Genetics has been on the Big 12 carrying payroll the whole time. Cloak and dagger. Thank you so much for your super chat, Ryan Thomas. Thank you for your generosity. By the way, Mr. Ryan Thomas, I think there should be some congressional hearings going on. I think there should be some committees set up in the House, in the Senate. Trilateral commissions, whatever fancy names you want to throw out there. Having to do with BYU. And all that NIL money being spent on basketball. Holy smokes. That doesn't bring about competition. BYU is dominating the basketball recruiting. More noise. I want congressional hearings. How dare the BYU Cougars? Look out for themselves. How dare they? Anyways, Ryan, I expect a phone call to tell me how wrong I got it once again. Apples and oranges, pears and peaches. It don't matter. I had to give you a shot. It doesn't matter. Okay, thank you, Ryan Thomas, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Let's go through the roll call, and then we're going to go through the article, quick article from The Athletic, stock up, stock down, and then we're going to get to our selections against the spread. And I'm warning you, I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of it. Greg the Gold is showing up in week 9. Okay, let's go through the roll call. Gerald Jones is in the house. Rockin' Rant Mr. Hurricane has made his presence known. Sheep and Wolf's Clothing, Stephen McNeely, Nathan Campbell, Charlie Atwood. I wonder if Charlie Atwood is going to be happy or mad in my pick against the spread, Penn State and Wisconsin. Bo Weevil, go Clemson. Skaven Yes is in the house. Caleb Ramirez, Mr. Buckeye, Mr. Cyclone, Matt Neeson, Bimba 7579, stock way down. My Michigan is way down. Michigan will be back. Michigan is going to be back. It might not be next year, but Michigan is going to be back. Nathan Campbell is in the chat. Rock and Rant, guys, free money. Bet the over on Miami. Florida State. Bob Swanger is in the house. AMAC is in the house. Michael 19th C-Fan is here. Gold Black 45 is in the house. Jimmy, Mr. Duck is here. Mr. Horn Frog, Mick Stevens is in the house. Oh boy, here comes the Hoosiers. Mr. Hoosier Daniel Montcastle is in the house. The Georgia Bulldog, Don Scruggs, he's feeling better. He's feeling better about everything. Talking about stock up. Georgia Bulldog stock went way up. They defeated the number 1 Texas Longhorns. Holy smokes. Jose, Mr. Trojan, USC Trojan is in the house. Ryan Thomas, Jeff Morgan, the Architect, Juan Carlos, led into gold MBM. Ryan Thomas, you're comparing American cheese with real cheese. Well, don't put any of that cheese on that meat. Your point is well taken, and it might be logical, and my point wasn't logical. Except don't put meat on cheese. Don't put cheese on meat. Juan Carlos is in the house. Rick Olson, my Oregon is way up. Way up. Okay, here we go. Austin Mock. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on a lazy Tuesday afternoon, October 22nd. College football playoff stock watch. Yes, Indiana has a better chance than Alabama. Holy smokes. Every week, the college football playoff picture seems to get flipped upside down in some respect. Week 8 did not disappoint, and I don't think many weeks could disappoint, given how this season is shaping up. Georgia went into Austin and took down the number 1 Texas Longhorns, while Alabama lost at Tennessee, and Indiana continues to ascend in the playoff conversation. Now the Hoosiers are in my bracket, and the Crimson Tide are out. Holy smokes. Every Tuesday, I look at teams that have increased or decreased their stock the most in the playoff picture, according to my projections model. With the nature of the 12-team playoff as well as the growing period in the sport, no team is ever safe. Just ask Alabama. And the field is far from being set. In fact, as we head into week 9, my projections give only 8 teams above a 52% chance to make the playoffs. Going into week 9, Austin Mock, the Athletic, his projections, only 8 teams are above 52%. Wow. Oregon, 96. Miami, 93. Georgia, 93. The Buckeyes, 90. Penn State, 90. Texas, 75. Notre Dame, 75. Clemson, 2 out of 3 chance of making the playoffs, 64%. There are, in theory, at least 4 spots that are wide open. And 15 more teams have at least a 10% chance of making the playoff. For now, let's address Indiana's rising stock, Alabama's falling stock, and a couple of unexpectedly key games this weekend. Stock up, Indiana. This isn't the first time Indiana's name has popped up on this list, but the Hoosiers deserve another shout out after demolishing Nebraska 56-7. They're 7-0 for the first time since 1967. My model projects them to have a 65% or greater chance to win in every remaining game except for their trip to Ohio State. That means they're sitting pretty for a playoff bid after they were totally off the map in the preseason. The wild card is quarterback Curtis Rourke, who has led the way this season and even garnered Heisman Trophy talk, but was injured during the game against Nebraska. He ranks first in the FBS in expected points added per dropback and dropback success rate among qualified quarterbacks. Yes, he definitely has garnered Heisman Trophy talk. The Ohio Bobcat transfer has been playing as well as anyone, which has Indiana leading the nation in scoring and squarely in the playoff race. The question is, how long Rourke will be sidelined with the thumb injury? He will not play Saturday against Washington, but is expected to return this season. Now, we did hear a report today from Pete Thamel from ESPN that the thumb injury is Curtis Rourke is recovering from the thumb injury a lot quicker than they expected. That you should he has a good chance of coming back for the November 2nd game. And he has not been totally ruled out for the game against Washington. That was the report of this morning. Backup quarterback Taven Jackson closed out Nebraska's game by going 7-8 for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jackson will almost certainly be a downgrade, but beyond Ohio State, the remaining schedule is manageable, especially given Michigan's struggles. My model gives Indiana a 52% chance to make the playoff, making it the projected number 10 seed playing at number 7 seed Texas. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting down on a Saturday afternoon or that Saturday evening or maybe that Friday night evening watching the first round of the playoffs? Indiana at Texas. Quinn Ewers versus Curtis Rourke. Holy smokes. This is Indiana's schedule. Washington at Michigan State. Michigan at Ohio State, Purdue. That's the remaining schedule. Stock down. Alabama. How quickly things can turn. After its win against Georgia, Alabama had a 94% chance to make the playoff heading into its game against Vanderbilt on October 5th. By the way, we're going to be making this selection to pick Texas versus Vanderbilt this week against the spread. We're doing that today, so buckle up, brace for impact just 3 weeks later. The number has plunged to 49%. Bama only has a 49% chance to make the playoffs. That is a coin flip, according to Austin Mock's The Athletic projections. Though Texas lost to Georgia, stung the Longhorns, fell from 94% to 75%, the Crimson Tide's drop is more painful. The last Saturday at Tennessee wasn't too surprising, but the loss at Vanderbilt certainly was. Even with Vanderbilt playing better and now ranked in the AP poll, number 25, the upset will sting for a long time. Alabama will make the playoff if it wins out, but I don't think they're going to win out. But its margin for error is near zero. It is zero. One more loss and Bama is out. After it's lost 2 games before November for the first time since Nick Saban's debut in 2007. Will Alabama make the college football playoffs? How the Crimson Tide's postseason chances have changed through week 8. You see that blue line? It's dipped below 50%. At 49%, the Mountain West gets playoff spotlight. Boise State has been the Group of 5 playoff participant in my projections since the preseason. But this Friday night, and we're going to be doing a PATC watch party on this game. So please join us late Friday night. Boise State, UNLV. The Broncos travel to UNLV for a battle of the 2 best teams in the Mountain West. Boise State is favored by only 3 points, and if it wins, it has to feel pretty good about where it stands if it can win out. As the Broncos' only loss on the road to Oregon, it was only a 3-point loss. UNLV has a home loss to Syracuse. And even if the Rebels win this weekend, I think they have to be peeking over their shoulder at other potential Group of 5 teams like Army and Navy leapfrogging them. And we're going to be doing a PATC watch party. Navy versus Notre Dame, noon Eastern time this Saturday, October 26th. Please join us if you can. If Boise State wins, if Boise State defeats UNLV this Friday night at UNLV, its playoff odds increase to 55% from the current 33%, while UNLV would fall to 17%. If UNLV were to win Friday night, its playoff odds increase to 52% from 32%, while Boise State odds would fall to 20%. Again, this is all projections. Austin Mock, You can have your own metrics, your own projections. That's all good. That's all fine. Again, it's just an illustration of how important this Friday night game is between Boise State and UNLV. There's going to be so many eyes on this game. So many eyes on this game. Ashton Jeanty, number 1 or number 2 in the Heisman race, between him and Cam Ward, Boise State has a chance to push themselves even further into the playoff spotlight. This is a big moment for the Broncos and for Ashton Jeanty. And of course, it's a big spotlight game. Another big spotlight game for the UNL Rebels. Holy smokes. What if Navy beats Notre Dame? Now, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks. We cannot avoid the conversation. Now, maybe Notre Dame just curb stomps Navy this Saturday. Maybe they will. And maybe we'll look back at all of our discussions and say, what a waste of time. But I don't think it is. I don't think it was. I don't think it will be. Because we still got the Army situation that Notre Dame is going to have to play. We still going to have the Army possibility of winning the American Athletic Conference and winning the Army-Navy game and possibly being the G5 representative or even possibly getting an at-large bid. What if Navy beats Notre Dame? Navy is ranked number 24 and has a season-defining game this week against number 12, Notre Dame in East Rutherford, New Jersey. ABC, noon, Saturday, Eastern Time. ABC, the undefeated midshipmen, have only a 6% chance to make the playoffs. 6. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have to play Notre Dame this week. And they still have Tulane on the schedule. Plus the potential ACC title game. That is a whole lot of big hurdles for the midshipmen. Remember, their annual rivalry game with Army, which has a 28% chance to make this college football playoffs. Army has a bigger chance because they don't play Tulane. Keep that in mind. That Army-Navy game is after the College Football Playoff Committee selects the bracket. So that game has no impact on the playoff, although the two can meet for the conference title as well, which would be a week before the historic Army-Navy game. So how big of a hurdle is this for Navy? Right now, the midshipmen are projected by the odds maker to beat Notre Dame just 20% of the time. 1 out of 5 chance. But if that 20% hits, if it does, Navy's playoff odds would increase to 10%, while Notre Dame's would fall from 75 to 38%. Notre Dame already has a damaging loss to Northern Illinois, and my projection might be a little too optimistic with that number. Either way, Navy has a chance for one of its biggest wins in a long time, in a game that unexpectedly has playoff implications for both teams. That just covers just part of the college football world. The Mountain West, UNLV, Boise State, the American Athletic Conference, Army, Navy, and a little bit of Tulane in there. Notre Dame, a little bit of that in there. Alabama, Indiana. That is just part of what we're looking at. That is just part of it. Is your team stock up? Is it down? Who are you looking over your back shoulder at? What team? What program? What game? There is so much drama going on in college football, and I cannot wait to see how it plays out in Week 9. Speaking of Week 9, we're going to go right into the selections. Who goes first? Who goes first? I think I do, but I don't want to be called, I don't want any corruption charges. I don't want anybody to say, Greg, you're cheating. Your 34-49 record is so impressively bad. I think I go first, but I'm not sure. Greg the Cooler, I'm gonna go first. Okay, let's do this thing. Let's do it. Let's do it. I will go no worse. I will go no worse than 7-2 this week. It's the fat guy from Minnesota, Greg the Gold, guaranteed. 7-2. That's going to be the record. No worse than 7-2. Syracuse at Pittsburgh. Now, the most difficult games, we're going to do 11 of them. 11 of them. The most difficult games for me were the first two. The first two on the list that we're going to do. Syracuse at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been surviving. Eli Holstein has just been able to do enough with his legs. He makes enough passes, but Desmond Reed has been nicked up. Mumfield, the great wide receiver, he's been doing okay, but I was expecting more. The defense is all right. Narduzzi, they've been skating by. They've been just barely getting by. They're still undefeated. I've got Syracuse covering. Pittsburgh will win the game by a field goal, but 5.5 to me is too many points. Too many points. I am taking the orange. I am taking Syracuse. 5.5. Give me Kyle McCord and 5.5 points. Boise State and UNLV. I think this is going to be an epic football game. I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. The atmosphere, this game is so bleeping important to these two programs, to these two fan bases. This is going to be wild. It's absolutely going to be wild. I am going to take UNLV 3.5. I feel good about winning this game if the Broncos wins by a field goal. I think UNLV is going to be able to score. Ashton Genty is going to have another big game. It's going to be wild. And I'm going to be hoping for a 1, 2, 3-point game either way. I'm taking UNLV. Even if it's a backdoor cover, I'm taking UNLV. I think the first two games were the most difficult games. Washington at Indiana. The Huskies, I've got a lot of respect for that program. This year's team is playing better than I think most people will give them credit for, but I'm taking the Hoosiers. Indiana backup quarterback. He's going to do just fine. He has faced live bullets. The Indiana Hoosiers are going to roll. It's not going to be a blowout, but I will be happily to give 6.5 points. Nebraska at Ohio State. I don't believe that Ryan Day is going to call off the Dogs. The Buckeyes' last game was Oregon, and they lost. They feel the sting of that loss. They had a bye week. Nebraska's Dylan Raiola, there has been reports about his ankle. I don't think the Buckeyes are going to let up. I don't think Nebraska's going to lay down. Don't get me wrong. And I think Nebraska is going to... I don't think it's going to be the repeat of the Indiana game. But in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, even if the Buckeyes are only up by 17, I don't think they're going to let up. So I'm taking the Buckeyes. I'm taking Ohio State and giving the 25.5 points. What is this? What is this? The disrespect that BYU is getting in this game. This line is bulletin board material. BYU is getting 1.5 points? Are you kidding me? In what world? In what world? The one-dimensional UCF offense is going to score. They're calculating here. The over and under is 55.5 points. So Vegas is calculating that you, the bettor out there, the people who put the wager on this, they're looking at what is that? 23-22, 24-22 football game? Come on. Come on. What are we talking about here? I'm taking the BYU Cougars. This is an absolute lock. And shame on the PATC community if you guys take UCF. And I got no disrespect to UCF, but this is an insult to BYU, the leaders of the Big 12. Oh boy, there's only one play in my estimation. There's only one play here, and that is to take Vanderbilt, 18.5 points. And I'll tell you why. Because if Vanderbilt gets down 21 points, they are not going to stop playing. The Commodores will not stop playing throughout this whole game. Is Texas going to play 60 minutes in Nashville? Are they going to put away Vanderbilt, lock them up, fold them away? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this 18.5 points, I'm taking Vandy. I'm absolutely taking Vandy, 18.5 points. Diego Pavia will do all that he can to get Vanderbilt back in the game, late in the game. I don't care if they're 3 touchdowns. I don't care if they're down 24, 27 points. Vanderbilt will not stop until they get this game covered for Greg the Gold. LSU at Texas A&M. The importance of this game cannot be understated. LSU and Texas A&M sit at the top of the SEC standings all alone. They're the only 2 programs that have an undefeated conference record. LSU lost to USC, Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame, and neither team has skipped a beat since then. I've been hot and cold on LSU. I took them last week against the spread. They started winning for me. Texas A&M, I was hot on them at the beginning of the season, but then I noticed something wrong with Connor Wegman's throwing. He's back. Everything's cool. Everything's cool with the Aggies. 2.5 points. Texas A&M is favored. I'm going to take the home team in College Station to win a very emotional game for the new head coach, Mike Elko. I think Texas A&M wins this game by a field goal, covers by 0.5 point. I'm taking Texas A&M. Well, Miami, I bet on you, you don't cover. I bet against you, you cover. No matter what I do with the Hurricanes, it all goes pear-shaped. I don't think Florida State's going to be able to score, even against Miami of Florida. I've looked at That offense is not going to be able to score. They're not going to be able to take advantage of the Hurricanes' secondary play. I think Miami wins this game 35-10. I'm taking Miami Hurricanes in a blowout, in an absolute blowout. Penn State at Wisconsin. Everybody knows what I'm going to do with this game. Everybody. The Golden Gopher, the fat guy from Minnesota, is going to take the evil Badgers. This is going to be a rock fight. I think there's a very good chance that Tawi Waka, Mr. Walker, number 3, the Wisconsin Badgers running back, is going to have a better game than Singleton and K'Ron Allen. Now, the quarterback might not. Penn State will probably win this game, but I'm going to take the Badgers in 6.5. They are going to be a very difficult out for Penn State. If Penn State wins this game, going away, they're going to have sent another notice to everybody else. But I'm going to take the Badgers. I'm going to take the Wisconsin Badgers plus 6.5. SMU at Duke. Great year for Duke. Manny Diaz has squeezed all the juice out that he possibly can with this team. Duke has had another successful season. And this time with the first-year head coach. They lost Mike Elko, but they really did not skip a beat. The offense is struggling. Therefore, I don't think they're going to be able to keep within 11.5 of SMU. I took SMU last week, and they blew the team out. They won big. I think they're going to win big here. I'm taking SMU, quarterback Jennings, SMU. Now, SMU did get some bad news this week. They lost their great tight end for the season, R.J. Maryland. That is really difficult news. And I think it might affect SMU. Really, down the stretch. I don't think it's going to slow them up for this game. We shall see. But that is devastating news for the SMU Mustangs. They lost their great tight end for the season. And the last game, Kansas State, Kansas. I think Kansas State is all lathered up. I respect the Kansas Jayhawks. I respect Leipold. I respect the whole thing that they're going on. They've struggled a bit this season. The quarterback has struggled a little bit this season. They've got to turn around a little bit. But I think the Wildcats are ascending. I think they're going up. I think they're going straight up. I'm taking the Kansas State Wildcats minus 10.5. Those are my selections. Syracuse, UNLV, Indiana, Ohio State, BYU, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Miami, Wisconsin, SMU, and Kansas State. Now we're going to be doing the PATC communities picks. Greg reverse jinking the Badgers. Nope. It's authentic. It's all Ryan Willie, there you go. No. Come on. No. Don't think of it that way. Come on. Badgers, let's go. It's completely authentic. Nope. It's completely authentic. Kansas State wins easily. Here's my advice. Don't pick Iowa to win another game. Holy smokes. Mr. Hawkeye is down on his Hawkeyes. Bob Swanger is happy with my picks. Go Black 45. If we can stop the run, I'll take the Nest Bus over Wagman to make the plays. Nest Bus was a little bit off last week, though, even though they won big. Or was it the week before? I don't remember. But anyways, it don't matter. It don't matter. I got Texas A&M. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Does Pittsburgh cover the minus 5.5 point spread versus Syracuse? If you vote yes, you're taking Pittsburgh. If you vote no, you're taking the 5.5 points in Syracuse. The voting begins now. Daniel Montcastle, Indiana wins the national championship. Wark wins the Heisman. Sig wins Coach of the Year. Daniel Montcastle has hit the liquor cabinet early on this Tuesday afternoon. Well, Coach Sig might win Coach of the Year. Wark might win the Heisman. He might be 2 out of 3. Indiana win the national championship. Who knows? Daniel could be sweeping. He could be sweeping. Immaculate. Hope Indiana has a good backup. Well, they got a backup who's played a lot, Tavon Jackson, and he did real good in the second half last week. He looked really impressive. Indiana did not change their offense. Daniel doesn't have a lot of faith in him. But Indiana did not change their offense. Remember that against Nebraska in that second half. 5 more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, 58% takes Pittsburgh. I've got Syracuse. I think 5.5 is too much. But the PATC community is fine with the 5.5 points. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I tell you what, this Friday night game, woo! Does Boise State cover the minus 3.5 point spread versus UNLV? If you vote yes, you're taking Boise State, given 3.5. If you vote no, you're taking UNLV and you're taking 3.5. The voting begins now. It's going to be a big Friday night, man. The watch party this Friday night is going to be massive. We'll go through that again later in the show. I'm going to give 5 more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The PATC community, 70% votes to take Boise State and given 3.5 points. Holy smokes. Washington at Indiana. Everybody knows what's at stake here. Does Indiana cover the minus 6.5 point spread versus Washington? If you vote yes, you're taking Indiana and you're given 6.5. If you vote no, that means you want Washington in getting 6.5. The voting begins now. Five more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 77% takes Indiana. A blowout. The Hoosiers. People have not lost faith on Indiana. Even with the backup quarterback, who again, you know, he looked real good, and it sounds like he's got a real close relationship with Curtis Rourke. So maybe he has learned some stuff. Who knows? Does Ohio State, whoops, I'm screwing up. Everybody hold on. Does Ohio State cover minus 25.5 point spread versus Nebraska? If you vote yes, you're taking the Buckeyes and you're giving 25.5. If you're voting no, you're taking Nebraska and you're getting 25.5. The voting begins now. Five more seconds to vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 59% or 56% takes Ohio State. The PATC community takes the Buckeyes, given 25.5 points. BYU, UCF. Does UCF cover the minus 1.5 point spread versus BYU? If you vote yes, that means you're taking USC and you're giving 1.5. If you vote no, you're taking BYU and you're receiving 1.5. The voting begins now. Going to give them 5 more seconds for the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 64% of the voters said no. So the PATC community has taken the BYU Cougars, undefeated BYU Cougars, on the road, getting 1.5. Does Texas cover the minus 18.5 point spread versus Vanderbilt? If you vote yes, you're given 18.5 points, you're good with it. If you vote no, that means you're receiving 18.5 points and you're taking Vanderbilt. The voting begins now. Going to give them 5 more seconds on the voting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 72% of the voters says no. So the PATC community is taking Vanderbilt in the 18.5 points. 18.5 points. Here we go. Here we go. The top 2 teams in the standings in the SEC. Does Texas A&M cover the minus 2.5 point spread versus LSU. If you vote yes, that means you're taking Texas A&M and you're giving 2.5. If you're voting no, that means you're taking LSU and you're receiving 2.5 points. The voting begins now. Five more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 55% says no. The PATC community takes LSU, the Tigers. Wow. Does Miami cover minus 20.5 point spread versus FSU? If you vote yes, that means you want Miami and you're given 20.5 points. If you vote no, that means you're taking the Seminoles and you're receiving 20.5 points. The voting begins now. Ryan Brooks, I already did the picks. I already did the picks, and I did take Texas A&M. I said they win by a field goal. So I will give the 2.5 and win this game by 0.5 point. Five more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 64% says yes. The PATC community is taking Miami and given 20.5 points. Here is an interesting one. Very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. Does Penn State cover the minus 6.5 point spread versus the Evil Badgers? If you vote yes, you're willingly, you're going to do it, you're going to give 6.5. If you vote no, you're taking the Badgers and you're receiving 6.5. The voting begins now. We actually got a close vote. It's a close one. I'm going to give 5 more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 53% says yes. The PATC community takes Penn State by a whisker. SMU and Duke. Does SMU cover the minus 11.5 point spread versus Duke? If you vote yes, you're taking SMU and you're giving 11.5. If you vote no, you're taking the Duke Blue Devils and 11.5 points. You're receiving 11.5 points. The voting begins now. Five more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 58% of the voters pick SMU to cover. Last one, the last game for week 9. Kansas State. Here we go. And then we'll get to your phone calls. Does Kansas State cover minus 10.5 point spread versus Kansas? The voting begins now. If you take yes, you're taking Kansas State, giving 10.5. If you vote no, you're taking Kansas, receiving 10.5. Going to give 5 more seconds on the vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 77% says yes. The PATC community takes Kansas State. Thank you, everybody, for voting on your selections. This is what we've got. Greg the Cooler is 34-49 against the spread. The PATC community is 35-48. You got a 1-game lead. I took Syracuse. You took Pittsburgh. I took UNLV. You took Boise State. We both took Indiana. We both took Ohio State. We both took BYU. We both took Vanderbilt. I took Texas A&M. You took LSU. We both took Miami. I took Wisconsin. You took Penn State. We both took SMU. We both took Kansas State. So that wraps up our Week 9 selections. Thank you, everybody, for doing this fun little thing we do every single week. We haven't been very successful, but we will carry on. Hopefully, Greg the Gold makes his second appearance this season. Secret Agent, go KU. The PATC separates from the Cooler this week. Okay, let's open up the phone lines. 763-260-1333. Give me a call, talk anything you want in college football about the upcoming games. But if your team stock is up or down on the college football playoff race, one other piece of news that I want to get to. Dennis Dodd. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger, can you hold on one second? I just want to get to this piece of news right
Yes.
here. Where is it? Dennis Dodd tweeted out this afternoon. Can confirm the Pac-12 has hired Octagon as essentially an agent to market its media rights. The next step is getting an 8th team then getting a deal. So Dennis Dodd is saying the Pac-12 is going to get its 8th team and then secure the media deal. That is how Dennis Dodd's reporting it. Again, I have not received any decent information on who that 8th team is going to be. I really haven't. And it's not due from a lack of trying. I will try again, but I have no information. If I did, I'd be delivering it to you all as a peek around the corner. But right now, I have got nothing. Anyway, Evil Badger, you're on the line. The floor is yours.
I didn't think an evil gopher would pick the Badgers ever.
Well, look, don't get me wrong. Evil Badger is an evil badger is an evil badger. But when I'm picking against the spread and when I'm trying, look, I had Wisconsin finishing ahead of Minnesota this year, right? I have them beating Minnesota in Madison, winning the tiebreaker. It might come down to that. I have to be authentic. I really have to be authentic. I don't want to pick the Badgers, but I have to pick the Badgers. I think they're going to cover. I think they're going to get Nittany Lions, a very tough game. What do you think, Ryan Willie?
Well, because of that night, I think it's and a Halloween weekend. I think it might happen, but I'm not totally confident about that. I think they have a better chance of beating Penn State than Oregon in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be feeling better about how your team is playing, though, right? Right? I mean,
true.
You can see it coming together. I think you can see the game slowing down for Braden Locke. What do you think of that?
I think he might be our starting quarterback next year, and we don't really need DVD.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he is going to be a QB1, at least at the beginning of next year.
Right.
But then you got Oregon later on, don't you?
Yeah, I'm taking that as a loss already. I'm not too confident that they can pull that one out.
Yeah, let's take a look here real quick.
November 16th.
Yeah. You got Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, at Nebraska, Minnesota. Boy, that is a tough sled. But again, I think you're playing better than you were at the beginning of the year. So,
well, I think Nebraska and Minnesota are pretty much going to be wins for the Badgers. Iowa, a toss-up, but I think we'll take back the Portland Trophy.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a close one. Wisconsin, Iowa, that's going to be a close game. We'll see how Wisconsin comes out of the Penn State game, right? I mean,
right.
But yeah, I think you got a chance to go 4-1 the rest of the way, but you're probably going to end up 3-2 or 2-3. But I think Wisconsin.
I'll be happy with 3-2.
All right. Just don't be too now. Don't be too beat up before you play the Gophers. Okay, don't be too beat up. You're playing Penn State. They're big. They're rugged. Iowa is rugged, man. They are a tough team. Oregon's going to be flying all over the place. So don't have any excuses lined up when the Gophers go into Madison to try to take that axe away.
Oh, they're not going to get the axe.
Okay. All righty, sir. Anything else?
All right. Well, that's all I got.
Beautiful.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Evil Badger. Thanks for calling, man.
Thank you.
You bet. Ryan Willie, he agrees with me. The Badgers are looking better. Gophers and Badgers at noon on Black Friday. Um, Daniel Montcastle. The Pac-12. Notre Dame is the 8th team.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, BYU Cougars. The disrespect that BYU is getting. They're
Well,
receiving a point and a half in that game. What is going on, Mr. Ryan Thomas?
I don't know. The line started out with BYU plus favored by 2, and then it shifted. I don't know what's going on. I don't know of any. I'm not aware of any injuries or anything. But I mean, who knows? I mean, look, I've said this before. This game all depends on UCF's mindset. They can either use that Iowa State heartbreaking loss as something that's a motivation to build on, or that's one of those losses that can just deflate your team, right? So it just really depends. I don't know. I mean, certainly, they've got to improve on the run defense, but like I said, Ollie Gordon's pretty special. Not a lot of people stop Ollie Gordon. So that he's a good player. But I wanted to go back to my point here, since you took your shot. I'm going to go back to my overall point. When everyone can spend what they want and what their boosters and what they want to do, that's fine. But we're talking about schools that will have $150 million advantage potentially over anyone outside of the P2. And I'm sorry, but, someone paying $7 million or $4 million for a basketball athlete, that's not exactly a fair comparison. And, you're also talking about not ever being able to challenge the SEC or Big Ten spots. If you recall, Greg, it wasn't until the 90s that the SEC even began to be what it is today. You can recall that the Big East and Big 12 or once and Big 8 and SWAC were all once dominant conferences, but things change. So, when we're talking about permanently enshrining a monopoly that can't be challenged, when we basically renege on the look-in provision that everybody agreed to, which is a pretty bad faith action, then, I think it's pretty crooked. Now, I would remind you something. Did you hear what Greg Sankey said the other day when they asked him about how many SEC teams he thought should be in the playoffs?
I said 8.
Yeah, 8.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
This is the mentality we're dealing with, okay? So I think that's the thing that you're dealing with right there. And I'm all about, I'm all down, people want to. It's one thing before in the past when there was a lot more, when money was a little bit evenly spread, but even before that, the BCS era itself was corrupt because, the Big East got gutted and kept its position, and you had, Utah, BYU, and TCU in the Mountain West were having fantastic years, and they never got any consideration for a BCS conference. It's sort of one of those things that it's very frustrating to programs that are trying to build their way in when they have barriers keeping them out. That's my biggest beef. If you want to earn on the field, earn on the field, and they have earned it on the field. So, but let's just take this year, for example, Greg. Let's just take this right now, where you could have potentially 2 or 3 ACC teams in the playoff, possibly. You could have 2. It even depends on what happens with Kansas State. You could have 2 or 3 Big 12 teams in the playoff.
Yep.
You could have 2 or 3. You could have 2 G5 teams in the playoff, Greg.
Yep.
And Notre Dame.
Yep.
And you're telling me those teams that are all having great seasons, let's give them the middle finger and instead take some crappy 8-4 Ole Miss team, if that's how it shaked out.
Well, I'm not telling you that personally. I'm just.
Yeah, but
yeah.
On what planet is that fair?
Yeah.
That's the issue, and it's fine. If there are years, but what Sankey says right there tells you all you need to know what he thinks about the Big Ten. And, I mean, in Sankey's view, he's just dealing with the Big Ten because he has no choice but to deal with them. But, I mean, this is a guy that I wouldn't trust that guy worth his salt because he'll use a looking against the Big Ten if he gets the chance. So, I mean, this is what we're sort of dealing with, and that's all I'm saying. And, I mean, I understand why people are doing what they're doing. I understand why the Big Ten did what they did. The Big Ten had to expand to USC and UCLA because, Greg Sankey basically stabbed Bob Bowlesby in the back, and the Big Ten had to respond. We all know kind of what happened, and the Pac-12, if the Pac-12 didn't mismanage itself, then it's probably not in this position, or it's probably still there. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I just go back to the point that, everyone sort of wants a shot to have some sort of meritocracy. And when basically I know it seems to me like the SEC and the Big Ten want no risk and all the reward, and they want everyone else to have all the risk and little reward. And that's not how it works in the real world, or it shouldn't work that way. I mean, all I'm saying here is, when people do that kind of stuff, it's irritating the rest of us. And true, I mean, is Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama and, other schools, are they always going to be in the mix? Sure. But, you have programs that take dives, too. Like, for example, look how far Florida's fallen. Things change all the time. And, I certainly say, as a program that's gone in and won at Tennessee, won at Arkansas, won at Texas, won at A&M, that has won in several SEC stadiums, I get a little annoyed by this being, basically being told that you're not allowed to compete. Our lesser brands can have the $150 million advantage on you, and we're just going to permanently enshrine it. That's my issue, and that's my response to it. And I realize programs are going to be good in and out every year, and they're probably going to get those spots. But the question is, why do you need them guaranteed unless you're worried? That's all I had. Have a good night, Greg.
Wait, hold on.
Go
Are
ahead.
you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Thanks for those comments. Brett Yormark, I want you to listen to his comment here on the potential of private equity in college sports. Let me just play this for you.
And I don't really talk about private equity as much as I talk about,
I'm not sure I can hear the audio.
should we be exploring a strategic partner, someone that provides capital resources and
But he kind of gave a
strategy
non-answer,
to help us
didn't
build
he?
our business.
I got it
There's no
going on
private
here. Hold on.
authorship. And I'm a big believer in outsourcing to people that know more than we do. Does that mean we end up with a strategic partner? Maybe, maybe not. But it's incumbent upon me as the commissioner to explore every and all options to make sure that we're as strong as we can be as a conference. So I'm doing my appropriate due diligence right now. I don't have a crystal ball, and who knows what the future holds when it comes to capital and how it makes its way into our ecosystem. But from my perspective, I'm doing the appropriate due diligence on behalf of the conference, and we'll see where we land.
Okay, so I don't know. Did anybody hear that? Were you able to hear that, Ryan?
Huh? No, I think I know what you're referring to. Okay. I heard it earlier.
Yeah, that was pretty quiet. He's looking into private equity. He doesn't want to call it private equity. He's looking for a partner, a possible partner. Charlie Baker, the NCAA president. There is an article out there today. I don't have a subscription for it, but it's talking about how basically he believes private equity, that private capital, I think he calls it, is going to come in somehow, some way. So it's interesting because when we talk about permanence, when you talk about a school, a permanent $150 million advantage, whatever, we've had that for a long time. This isn't anything new.
I disagree. We've had big conferences come and go, Greg. I mean, look what happened to the Big East.
Wait a second. The Buckeyes have always had a huge advantage over most of the Big Ten schools.
Oh, sure, they have.
Okay.
But I mean,
okay, hold on.
An auto bid is a different issue, Greg.
I'm not even talking about auto bid right now. I'm not talking. I understand what you're saying. On the auto bids, the Big Ten and the SEC are fighting for their interests. They're trying to do it for their networks. They might not get it. I completely understand your argument. It's very logical, very good argument. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the money aspect to it. Okay, I'm not talking about that. Money, the $150 million, whatever advantage, permanent advantage. What's interesting here to me is how if the private capital comes in at the conference level, not at a super league or everybody, incorporated everybody together, but as a conference level, who takes in that private capital and how they take it in and the advantages it might give a certain conference, that could be a separator. 20 years out from now, we could be looking back at the decisions that the Big 12 made or not made, ACC made or not made, the Big 10 made or not made, SEC made or not made in regards to private capital. That is a huge, in my opinion, a huge, massive wild card, right? Who is it coming at a conference level? Does it come in at a conference and school level? Like, will Florida State get involved with private capital separately, even if the ACC does or doesn't? I think that's a massive wild card. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Well, first of all, a runner on first is a lot further from the plate than a runner on at third. And when a base hit comes in, the runner on first moves to second. And so, realize the runner on third could take advantage of that base hit too and come home. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're talking about people that are stationed on different rungs of the ladder here, and nothing stops the Big Ten and SEC from developing those same type of relationships, and they still have the initial advantage. So, I mean, I think that's, and plus that money has to be paid back in some way. Mm-hmm. Now, what I do think ends up happening, because in response to all this, and I don't like the fact that, the ones that get screwed the hardest are the G5, Greg. And, I've said this before in the past, and nobody seems to understand what I was saying. What the real demarcation is going to be on athletic budgets and who's willing to invest. And, it's going to have various results at the end of the day. But that's going to be the real demarcation. Now, are we going to have a super league and private capital? No, but we might have giant leagues that are a hybrid where some have private capital and others don't. And ultimately that money has to be paid back. So, or they have to get some share or cut of the money. And if it works and if it's wildly successful, then, I certainly think that the SEC and Big Ten would take advantage of it if it works out in another place, and you're right back in the same place again. And, by not being able to, if it's successful for the Big 12 or the ACC and their teams can compete and win playoff games and advance and justify getting a bigger slice of the pie the next go around, then, that's the point. But if you're kind of even denying them a chance to even prove that they deserve a bigger piece of the pie, then it's kind of demoralizing and defeats the whole purpose of everything. So, I mean, it's really creating an artificial barrier to entry, and some will benefit that are on equivalent brand as others. I mean, sort of like a Minnesota or, an Iowa or others will benefit compared to, an Iowa State or a Kansas State, which probably have equivalent football programs. And others won't. And it's not based on merit, and that's the big issue. And I know everybody wants to say that, but Nebraska and Texas and a whole bunch of these other programs, Oklahoma, they built their reputation on beating up some of these teams and lower teams. And it's just sort of kind of funny that, we're at this point here that, we sort of want to just basically kick everyone to the curb here and not allow anyone to compete. Now, there will be some G5s. I think people like Boise with Micron or Memphis with FedEx money that will try to compete, and there's always going to be the disadvantage. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be even harder and harder and harder for people to build up programs, to keep coaches. People are going to do all sorts of things to try to compete. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's still a runner on first and a runner on third, and one is closer to home plate than the other. And that you can't tell me that's not an advantage, no matter what the runner on first does, even if he's still second. So, I think that is just the reality that we're dealing with. And I think it's one of those things. I would remind everyone that all those conferences signed on to the House settlement. They're all agreeing to pay a portion, of that. And, now they're saying, great, we'll have you, and keep in mind that the burden is as much more equally distributed with the House settlement than any of the distribution models going forward. So we're going to have you take more of a burden of the House settlement, and we're going to let you have less of the money. Realize people have problems with that. And, I understand exactly why, and I understand what numbers are there, but people like upsets. They watch upsets. I guarantee you that, the Bama-Vandy game, lots more people tuned into that because of upsets. But, when we kind of limit it and limit the overall pot and the overall opportunity for people to really get in there and prove something and build something, then it's kind of demoralizing for the rest of us. And, that's all I have to say. But I don't know what's going to happen with private equity. They want to be involved in everything. They've been involved in everything.
Yeah.
But they also make decisions. And, at the same time, you got university presidents, and I would point this out too. One of the casualties of this is you got university presidents who are being forced to jeopardize or choose money over relationships. And I go back to this. What's going to happen to all those MAC programs that depend on those Big Ten pay games? Mm-hmm. The Big Ten goes to 10 conference games, and some games with the SEC. What's going to happen to those programs? What strain is that going to put on the relationships between the university presidents? I can tell you right now, the president of Ohio State probably has more than just athletic relationships with the other presidents in the state of Ohio. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's kind of it's an ugly thing, because basically, what we're doing is we run away and leave people behind. That also puts those university presidents in a very difficult situation. And I understand it. I understand what's going on, but, there are a lot of things that are at stake here that, as I would remind, that affects everyone down the line, and it affects local economies. They don't get those games. They don't get those, opportunities they got before. And, it's an effect that's kind of not helpful all the way down, and it's being driven by, essentially a few people who are not connected with the vast variety of people who are intertwinedly affected.
All right, man. Ryan, I appreciate your time, sir. I think a lot of people agree with what you just said. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Greg. Bye-bye.
You got it. Okay, phone lines open, 763-260-1333. If you're new to the channel, if we haven't done it yet, please subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to donate to this channel. I am not sure why Immaculate is not coming through. I have no idea why his phone isn't coming through. Immaculate, I know you gave a call, but for some reason, it did not pipe in. Let me close. Yeah. Phone line is down. It is open, but it's not taking any calls. I have no idea why. None. Let me see if I can redo this thing. Oh, why isn't it working? It just was working. That's the one problem we haven't been having is the phone lines. And now it's not working. Doesn't make any sense. Makes absolutely no sense. Brian, it's not working. I've done it over and over and over again. Well, I guess we're going to have to close up the show then, because I was just going to take phone calls the rest of the way, and it's definitely not working. I've turned it off and on. I've closed it out. I've brought up a new browser a couple of times. What happens is I get the call on my monitor, and I do everything from my monitor, and I also get it on my own phone. My phone is going off like I'm getting a call. So that part is working. It's not showing up on the monitor. It's not coming through. There's no reason for it. I think this has happened one other time. One other time it's happened. So anyways, everything being strange. This is Google phone. Everything. I've talked to other...
Call from
Nitwit.
The Nitwit call came through. Why did not Immaculate's call come through? Immaculate, did you call my phone number, or did you call the show's phone number? Immaculate. If you can try, you might have called my personal number. Did you call my personal number? Or did you go 763-260-1333? Nitwit, go ahead. The floor is yours. I guess we're okay. I don't know what's going on.
I tell you what, I just wanted to call in to give it a shot, Greg, because
okay.
I
appreciate
want to
it.
talk a little. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit. Big game for Penn State.
Yes.
At Wisconsin. night game at Wisconsin. Another game is another opportunity to get better. I think this team is trying to get better every week.
Yeah.
I think those are some positive signs. I think Drew Aller in that USC game showed us something, refused to lose, and we'll see how much better he gets over the next couple games. So we're enjoying being 6-0, and but I tell you what, the Big Ten race, people are, Indiana looks pretty scary. People are saying they're going to have 2 losses at the end of the year. I don't know. Their receivers are great. Their offensive line's great. They have a running game, a pretty good defense. I mean, that spells a pretty good team, right, Greg?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, just wanted to call in. I'm pretty excited about this weekend and wanted to help you with your phone situation.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Nitwit.
Take care, Greg.
You got it. Thank you, sir.
Call from
Immaculate, thanks for calling again. I apologize. I don't know. I didn't do anything. I was about to close up the show, and then Nitwit called, and it worked. So I don't know.
I've been having problems with Google too. I've been having some issues here.
Yeah,
So
and the problem is, I got to be the dumbest person with the, I don't. When something goes pear-shaped in the studio, there's very little chance that I'm going to be able to correct it. Unlike other people who have college football YouTube channels and they're very smart, I have no idea what's going on around me. But go ahead, Immaculate. Fire away.
yeah, well, you're saying that my wife was laughing at me because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
She's the techie in the family here. But yeah, I was actually just going to call. I have a rant.
Got it.
And the name that I'm about to say at the start of this rant might surprise you.
Greg Pflugar.
And no, not at all.
Okay.
The name you've heard before that you probably thought you would never hear again because he's gone, no longer a Hawkeye, but his name is Pat Angerer. Did you see his post, his ex-post, and what he suggested Hawkeye fans should do?
What? Can you send it to me? Is that possible?
Oh.
Or?
I'm allergic to it. I don't know if I can touch it.
Okay. You don't have to then. You don't have to.
He's basically saying that everyone needs to try just sending love Cade McNamara, and maybe the results will be better on the field.
Yeah.
Anger. We're talking one of the roughest, most toughest, brutal players out there in his time. It's like, this is what's going wrong with college football.
Yeah.
This is why teams like Navy and Army are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is why old school Spagnetti is doing what he's doing with Indiana. Because no, soft love does not help with football. The guy has been playing quarterback for 6 years.
Yeah.
And he needs a little bit of love and all of that. Do well, man. Like, is that just ridiculous? Like, just hearing that, coming from a guy like that. I mean, respect the hell out of him. He was awesome, played it the right way. I can't even understand why some guys connected to the program are now just in this mode of just complete, like, defense for their coach.
Yeah.
It's really quite sad to see like what went down with the Michigan State game. Look, our postseason's done. It's over, and it's what it is. That's the case for most teams. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's over. It's time for them to start thinking about next year. And if they're not thinking about next year, which is what continuing to play Cade is, then why are we keeping him as coach? Is that crazy? Like, to honestly suggest that they might need to let go Coach Ferentz. I just can't believe what I'm watching. And I'm just kind of curious. Like, okay, I'm way connected to this.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what outsiders think upon hearing this. Like, is it like, oh, it's not that big a deal? Or is it kind of like, yeah, what is going on there? Because, I mean, it's just kind of crazy to watch. And it's really hard to judge when you're so, emotionally tied to something.
I watched some of the Spartans Hawkeye game. My feelings on Cade McNamara, it's not just about Cade McNamara. It's my feeling throughout college football. Head coaches, they really, 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 really don't want to replace the QB1. I mean, they don't. It's like they, it's always been like that. Sometimes it's even more severe. Like, you would think Sullivan would be getting packages throughout the game. Okay, if you're not going to start him, fine. If you're not going to get him the most snaps, fine. But give him something, because obviously maybe he can develop into something that has a higher ceiling than Cade McNamara has been giving you. I think about that all the time, not just about Iowa, but past, not this Minnesota team, but other Minnesota teams and other teams I'm watching. And it's not just the head coach of Iowa. It seems to be it seems to be just out there where coaches they must believe their eyes when it comes to practices. They're going to only play the guy who's been there, who's gotten the most reps. I don't know, man. They don't make changes in college.
You touched upon an Iowa thing, the whole practice thing. It's, it was last year, they kept Deacon in all year and didn't give the next guy a shot, Joey LaBasse. Meanwhile, Joey LaBasse is now over at Central Michigan having some games with over 300 yards a game now, which just saw a statistic. Iowa hasn't had a 300-yard passing game for like 50-some straight games, but the guy that they wouldn't give a single snap to has now gone on to Central Michigan and has had multiple 300-plus yard games. Not a single snap last year, mind you. And it really just looks like the whole thing was to protect Cade. Because if Joey had gone on in and done well, now what's he do?
Yeah.
But he knows Deacon's not going to do well. He knows it. So all of last year was sacrificed for Cade. And then now this year, when the season's over, in terms of, being competitive for postseason, you start to look at, okay, he hasn't done well. No one's going to say he's done well. No one is saying he's done well. Mm-hmm. But he still, even in his talks right now, today and yesterday, will not step off of him. I don't know. That's my rant. I know a lot of people aren't going to pay attention to that, but I just think we're going to see an unpredictable response here in college football where a Navy, an Army, and Indiana, these type of schools that are coming up that don't have the top-end athletes, but train those athletes kind of sort of in the old way. And so your entire team is just tougher. And plus, on top of that, it kind of seems like the academies are playing with some old-school tactics that just nobody else knows. Like, there's no preparation for it. So,
yeah.
I hear a lot of people say, oh, it's all going to be an arms race. That's all it's going to be in the future. And I'm saying, can we please pay attention to what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And evidence that's saying that might not be the case. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, it's like the New York Yankees. They're going to the World Series this year. The Dodgers are going to the World Series this year. They have the most resources. They have the largest margin of error. But, on the other hand, it's not a fait accompli. I mean, they don't always make the World Series. The Yankees haven't been making the World Series. There are teams that win the World Series that are lowest in payroll. It's been going on in the NBA lately. Now, last year, Boston Celtics won it. So, more resources give you the largest margin of error, but it doesn't, it doesn't, like, I don't want I don't want this to come off as, I'm in dangerous waters here, because I'm going to come off as woe is me, right?
Yeah.
But, people talk about how, Ohio State has $150 million more, $100 million, and I try to express this in the Ryan Thomas call and stuff. There has been programs, and I'll just take the Big Ten. There has been programs that have always had a massive advantage. I mean, it's been going on for decades. It's just the way it is. I mean, you're not going to be able to govern that. You're not going to have a draft. This stuff ain't going to happen in college sports. The Buckeyes, the Michigan Wolverines, they're not at the top of the heap in the Big Ten for decades because nobody else is not trying. They're at the top of the heap because they were born at third base. And they've done a great job at cultivating and making their brand humongous. And they keep getting rewarded by that. And by the way, Iowa has done an incredible job because they don't necessarily have the advantage of Michigan, Ohio State, the recruiting grounds. But Iowa, what I'm trying to say is I look at the ACC, I look at the Big 12, I get it. You're looking at the Big 10 who's got more resources. You're looking at the SEC who's got more resources. And it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. I will say this, and I know this is going to come off real bad. Woe is me, woe is me. But you look at the Big 12. Not, there is the lower end of resources and there's the higher end of resources in the Big 12. You take the ceiling and you take the floor, and it's not that very far apart, Immaculate. It really isn't, right? But if you look at the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't care if we're all sharing the same media dollars. Okay, some people get upset with that. We're all sharing the same media dollars. But it is the absolute extreme resources difference in the Big Ten and the SEC. So a team like Minnesota, where there is no football recruiting grounds, okay, we make more than an Iowa State. We make more than a BYU when it comes to media money. The Minnesota Golden Gophers every single year has 4 or 5 games where they're playing teams that have extraordinary more resources than we got. And that just didn't happen. That's been going on for decades. Like decades, Immaculate. I mean, and it's never going to change. You want to take a little bit away from the Gophers and give more to the Buckeyes? Congratulations. It ain't going to affect nothing. We're still going to be the Davids against the Goliath every single year until I'm dead, until the next generation of Gopher fans live and dead. So when I hear this talk of, well, it's not fair because somebody has way more resources than another, I get the permanency of it all. I get that argument. But the resources, the resources difference in the SEC between the bottom and the high end is gigantic. It ain't like, in the ACC got a little bit of that with Florida State and Clemson. But, I'm telling you, if you're talking about being born at first base or at third base, the Gophers have been born, we are in the batter's box while other teams are at third base. And it's always going to be like that. And you know what? A lot of that is, Brian, like, it's okay. It's part of the fun. We are absolutely David against all these Goliaths. We are a David versus a USC Goliath. Right? We brought in Goliaths. Yep. We brought in an Oregon and a USC. And that's fine. We know what's going to happen. We know we're going to get our butts kicked. But this whole thing about resources and the difference of it. Minnesota's playing teams that have so much more resources than we got on the football field, recruiting grounds. The gap is enormous. And then every year I hear the same thing. Minnesota's not even trying. They should get kicked out of the Big Ten. They're horrible. Well, maybe it's because we're at the batter's box and everybody else is at third base, and it's never going to change. That's just the way it is. Anyways, Immaculate, thank you. You ranted. I ranted. The floor is back to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my main points for folks. Now, for those who's about to say, okay, go beyond that, it's about access, right? It's about, people are worried that they're not even going to have that going forward. And
that's another argument, yes.
Understandable. It's honestly what I personally on X and here with you and my calls try to answer to, because that's the type of stuff that I can really sympathize with. Like, I get it, man. If I was a fan of a team that we not even have access anymore, I would be raising hell.
Yes, absolutely.
Just a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing right now, statements made by heads of the SEC and Big Ten, it feels to me like they're trying to use people's fear, right? They're off in a corner. They're making plans. Oh, we want to work.
Using their leverage. Yeah.
Yeah, they if they want Congress to really get involved like they do, like they've been lobbying for years, there's no way you get them to get involved while at the same time you're talking about cutting out all these schools. Like that's just not reality. And so, these are the things I try to present, but this isn't like fun stuff, right? Like no one really wants to hear or talk about the congressional movement. But that's not going to happen if a whole bunch of schools are getting cut out. They're not going to pass anything that then enables, a couple conferences to just leave everyone else behind. Like I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I think that that's just way beyond the bounds of reality. And so that's what I would say to folks is, it's like you're saying, it's never going to be fair. It's never been fair.
No.
But for those that are worried about just completely getting cut off, I just don't see a reality in the future where that actually happens. Now, these two are going to talk in a corner, come up with things, and just try to lead by just going and just kind of probably looking back and expecting everyone to follow. So I think that's where we're at, and I'm kind of hopeful for a future where we've got these teams like Ohio State that just have these massive rosters of guys that are prima donnas that they have to kind of tippy-toe with, right? And we can come in with these other programs and use some old school ways of getting prepared like Signetti, but also look to the future and create better game plans like he's doing. And I like to compare him to Ferentz, and just in terms of they have some very strong similarities, but they have some very big differences too. So I'll end it with that. I'm really hopeful to see Indiana somehow finds a way to just get by with their current quarterback, the backup.
Yeah.
Because I think what they're doing right there would be the example that everyone else needs to follow going forward. So I think that's a good place to end it with. All
right, man. I appreciate it.
Talk to you later, buddy. You have yourself a good one.
Beautiful. I just saw a report. Again, NBA is starting tonight. Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, tipping off here in a couple of minutes. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards against the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. I just saw a report from Adam Silver. He's teasing once again of a likely NBA expansion with Las Vegas and Seattle. Seattle getting back an NBA franchise. I'm telling you something right now. Adam Silver, if you expand the NBA by adding Seattle, by adding Las Vegas, for all that is good and holy, please pick the Minnesota Timberwolves to go east. I know geographically it should be the Memphis Grizzlies that go east. But then again, if you look at the potential teams that Memphis plays, whatever, I don't care. Whatever I need to do, Adam Silver, whatever I needed for Minnesota to redo the divisions, and put the Timberwolves in with the Detroit Pistons, the Chicago Bulls, the Milwaukee Bucks. Would you please do that, Adam Silver? Please. My goodness. Anyways, we're going to end this program. We've been on the air for 2 hours, just a little bit over 2 hours, a lazy Tuesday afternoon. We made our selections. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow is usually our selection show. I think tomorrow we're going to be hitting a different subject in college football. Possibly. Maybe. I wanted to have that space cleared on Wednesday. So we moved up the day for our selections. We usually do it on a Wednesday. We did it today on a Tuesday. There's a reason why I do anything here at Peek Around the Corner. There's always a reason. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications because we can come on live at any time. Keep your head on a swivel tomorrow. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.